Hey, MCE crew, look, let's this is kind of falling out of the news, but we need to go over it because the sanctions have pretty much done a real number on the American economy. Doesn't seem like it's really had any long-term effect on the target, Russia. Our predictions about sanctions on Russia. Back in March, we pointed out that the Western sanctions on Russia were likely to backfire against the West. Look, this is coming from Zero Hedge, but we did an entire video on that very thing about how the sanctions were going to boomerang and going to hit us, and Russia was going to recover. Um, the media looks like they're finally getting around to admitting that. Quoting from the March article that Zero Hedge did, and you can go back and watch our video about us, predicting this as well. Biden has, in effect, helped launch an economic World War III. That's exactly what we called it, imposing unprecedented sanctions on a large and economically important country. Russia isn't an Iran. It's not Libya. It's a continent spanning country with a population of 145 million people, and it is or was one of the world's top 5 exporters of oil, natural gas, nickel, wheat, coal, and other commodities. Let's break down why these sanctions are dangerous for us and close with our investment approach. Now that was back, they did the article in March. Now they're saying the mainstream media is catching on. Max Blumenthal says, he's one of these mainstream blue checkmark folks, Biden's arrogant anti-Russian sanctions have amounted to a price hike on the working class Americans that have so far failed to weaken the Russian economy. His neocon policy accelerates the process of de-dollarization. That's exactly what we said. What is de-dollarization? It is the rest of the world waking up and saying, hey, America just seized the foreign reserves of Russia because they don't like Russia's policy. What is to stop them from seizing our reserves if they don't like something we do? We got to get out of the dollar. That's de-dollarization. Also, they say that the Blumenthal says that this hastens our diplomatic isolation and imperial decline. And make no mistake about it, America is an empire. We just don't call it that, but when you look around the world where our military is and where we hold sway, okay, we are an empire. There's no two ways about it. It's not fashionable to say these days. That's why they don't put it that way. Russia. This is the Guardian. Okay, paper out of the UK. Russia is winning the economic war, and Putin is no closer to withdrawing troops. They're saying, "Hey, look, you did all these sanctions and whatnot, and what happened? Nothing." All right, just like we said, well, nothing to Putin. Russia. They ticked off the list of commodities that they have right there. The country has 11 time zones. Okay, Russia's a big, big place. And I want to point out that, when you look at Russia and people talk about how backwards it is, and okay, you can call it that if you want, but for many, many years after we got rid of the space shuttle, Russia was our only ticket into the space station. Without them, we wouldn't have been up there, okay, at all. But we paid them a hefty price per astronaut to get us from the Earth to the space station. Now, if they were so backwards, why'd we ever trust our astronauts with that? Okay. Not to mention the fact that they control a very sizable amount of the world's wheat supply, oil supply. But they backwards, right? Revisiting our investment approach. Now, we always talk about what you can do. This is going to be a rather short video because yesterday's video was pretty long. So let's go back through Zero Hedge's investment approach, and then we'll talk about ours, which is not too dissimilar. We were right. This is Zero Hedge talking. We were right about the impact of Western sanctions on Russia in March and April. We were right about our investment approach in response to it. Let's take a look. All right, so they basically said, they took a look at it and they said, what's going to be in short supply and thereby will cost more. And they looked at commodities, okay, wheat, oil, those things that those companies that were involved in those types of businesses. They've even got the United States Gasoline Fund, ticker symbol UGA. And we talked about corn, the Tecrion Corn Fund, ticker symbol CORN. These things have been in short supply, and when there's the demand has not changed, but the supply is constricted, then the price goes up. We talked about this exact same thing, but in a slightly different way. We said, you're going to want to do your due diligence and invest in commodities. Do your due diligence first. We talked about gold because Russia had moved to back aspects of its currency with gold. We also talked about the fact that from the standpoint of food, wheat, corn being the basis of the food chain. High fructose corn syrup is in fructose, whatever, tomato, is in everything. Okay, wheat. There's some ingredients to beers that are in short supply. Oil, okay, you've seen the prices at the pump lately. You know what's going on out there. So investing in these areas has been pretty smart move because it's just simple. The supply is constricted. This is why you got to continue to purchase assets. You got to continue to do your due diligence. And, if you're going to invest, you got to be somewhat fearless with it. Especially if you have a long-term approach. Okay. I don't advocate trading. I don't know anything about that. God bless those people that make money doing that. I'm a long-term investor. And I also own businesses. All right. We put the, if you check the community page, scroll down through there, and I'll put it up again. We put the webinar that we're going to be holding here soon, talking about building generational wealth on a budget. Okay. You might want to register for that because we talk about some of these concepts in that webinar. So take a look for that. It does have a cost. That cost is 1 hour of your precious time. Nothing more than that, but you're going to get a lot out of that hour. So the sanctions, as we predicted, I just wanted to revisit that. We were right. The sanctions they're hurting us. Okay, so they have constricted the global supply of so many precious commodities. I was in a debate / argument with someone the other day, and when I say argument, I'm not talking about throwing plates or anything like that, but an argument is basically a synonym for debate, in my mind at least. Doesn't have to be heated. But we're talking about this person opposite me was talking about how the president didn't have any sway over oil prices or gasoline prices at the pump. And this person kind of contradicted themselves because they said that oil was a global market. So I say you're absolutely right. Oil is a global market. And the president certainly can do things that drives up the price of gasoline. He can, one of the things he can do is stand pat on the federal gas tax. I haven't heard Biden move to encourage the Congress to put a moratorium on that. Okay, we know all about the fact that he's not a friend of the of drilling here in America. Okay, so that constrains supply. This person had a real tough time understanding that although they acknowledged that oil was a global market, that she kept saying, well, just because we're not drilling oil, our oil doesn't go to us anyway. Exactly. You just said, and I agree that it's a global market. But since it is a global market, if you take supply off at any point in the chain and the demand stays the same or increases, then of course you're going to have a higher price. Some people like to argue with me, even if it means they have to disagree with themselves. They just, for some reason, I'm the type of person who elicits that type of reaction from people a lot of times. So, whatever. But we were right, okay? And we're going to remain right. As long as these sanctions stay on, they're going to hurt America. They're going to hurt us to a greater degree. And these sanctions, if you look at the history of sanctions, when have they resulted in a leader of a foreign country that we targeted with sanctions? When has it resulted in them being deposed? As I read history, now I'm here, I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers. But I've done some research on that, and I haven't found one instance of it resulting in a leader being deposed. And Libya was a result of it. It was an offshoot of the Arab Spring, okay? Gaddafi was taken out as a result of the Arab Spring. Because Mubarak over in Egypt, he was an ally, okay, but they got rid of him too. Um, so the sanctions on you and I. Continue to purchase assets in line with what the world needs. Join us at that webinar to talk about how to build generational wealth on a budget. And remember that one of the assets that you might want to take a serious look at is your own business. MCEnow.com. We talk to you about, some things you might be interested in doing in the financial services industry. Hey, look, this industry is highly regulated. This is not something you get into um, as, some fly-by-night endeavor. Uh, there are aspects of it that you could definitely do part-time. But I just want to stress that, it's a very serious endeavor because you are trying to help people achieve financial independence. But it is extremely rewarding and it is lucrative. Okay, everything works if you work it. You could set up a candy shop on a corner in New York City and make millions. Everything works if you work it. So if you're interested in the financial services industry, check us out on mcenow.com. Go to the community page and get the link to register for our webinar. And guys, I will talk to you soon.